Let's jam.
Do it.
What is up, guys? I'm Kyle. He's Justin, and this is Real Estate with K and J. Today, we are talking about the negotiation process a little bit. We wrapped up last week with our buddy JP talking about the inspection and everything that goes into that. Today, we're going to talk about more like what we do after that, as far as working with you to kind of come to the right conclusion, the different kind of steps that go involved into some of the negotiations during the whole buying process, and also get into a bit of a market report, just kind of giving everybody an idea of where the market stands now and what some of our predictions are going into the quote unquote spring market, even though it's kind of never ending spring right now.
Literally, like you would think right now is spring just because of the way things are going. We're still running into multiple offer situations. Like I just ran into that yesterday, actually. There's cash offers going out there. It's wild.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. I had the same way over the weekend. I have put in a few different offers, and one of them in particular, this house was up only on Sunday. Only on Sunday. Had an open house. How that went, I have no idea. I didn't go. But we were the first showing. And it was multiple offer situation. They had a decision made by Monday.
Oh,
and it's nuts. So the stuff that we're talking about here is even more important, just so that people are as prepared as possible with these pre-approvals and having kind of their team set up and ready to go, so that, because most of the time when you're looking at these things, we'll say $100,000 house, anyone else that's coming in that house behind you is just as qualified as you are. So we really got to paint the picture as us being the best buyers that we can be. So we were talking about the market report a little bit. What are some of the numbers that you pulled up there, Justin, as far as just the scope of how things are looking out there for us?
Yeah, so I pulled up the MLS and to look at how many active and coming soon listings throughout the MLS, came to the number of 828 active and or coming soon listings. So that's not a lot. That is not a lot. So I remember when I first got in, it was like pushing, close to 2,000. There's a lot more options and a variety and not as many multiple offer situations. But yeah, as of right now, 828 active listings, 314 of those are in Toledo. And, out of the 828 listings, 66% are 200K and under. So that's an interesting stat, and it shows that right now we are hurting for inventory. So if anyone who wants to sell their house, please reach out.
Why? Really?
Literally.
But just to put it even more into perspective, last year when, you kind of hear people talking about how crazy the market was and, oh man, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that right now.
Right.
Because of X, Y, and Z. Just to put it into perspective a little more, we were looking at like double these numbers about
Yes.
in like the heart of spring last year. And
oh yeah.
Still pretty scarce as far as the multiple offer situations and things like that. The only thing is, though, for the way it's seeming from our end, is that once more sellers start getting off the couch, as the weather starts to warm up, the same will happen with buyers. So unfortunately, it's not necessarily going to get better or worse. It's just kind of the market's not a bad thing. It's just the way it is at the moment.
Right.
But we just need to be prepared for, going in there and fighting the good fight, if you will.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean,
yeah, because I talked to one of my lenders that I work with, and just to give some insight about like interest rates too. Last year, well, going in towards the last half of last year, interest rates are low. I had people locking in like 2.75 interest rates, like something crazy. But after talking to lenders this past week, they're talking about, well, we're expecting, interest rates to start going up, not super high or anything crazy. Like you'll still be right under like 4% or around that ballpark. But I mean, still 4% is pretty low. If you look at it back in like the history of it, interest rates once upon a time were like 12%, which is absolutely wild. So, but yeah, that's something I learned this past week that, I definitely feel would be helpful for anyone who's thinking about getting ready to start buying a house too. Just know interest rates are going to start going up before too long.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're not going to be like a ridiculous. So
Right.
if anything, right now, it might be the best time if you're kind of, wondering where you kind of stand as far as do I qualify for certain things. In fact, I got a woman that reached out to me um, asking about a rental recently. And I was like, well, do you know what you're going to pay in rent? Because you think the housing market, as far as like buying is sparse, like trying to rent is even worse. There's
Yeah.
nothing out there. If you go on the MLS and look, you're probably looking at 6 or 7, maybe. Then you
A
have a few more
handful.
on Zillow, and it's not much more. So she kind of told me what she needed, and I was like, "Well, have you thought about buying it all?" She goes, "Yeah, but I don't know about, my situation is this, and we have this going on." And I'm like, "Well, look, the worst that's going to happen is if I'm going to put you in touch with somebody, and the worst they're going to say is, hey, not today. They're going to tell us when." So her lease is up in April, and we're gonna get a pre-approval by February, so in about a week and a half. So it's not as insane as it sounds. To like, it's not a pipe dream to buy a house, and this is just another example of that. Um, so with that being said, we're just kind of be prepared for if you're looking that it's gonna be tough out there again. And to just hopefully if you're with us, you'll be as prepared as you can be. But hopefully,
Right.
if you're with anyone, they'll try and prepare you for the situation as far as letting you know, hey, we're in this price range. You guys want to be in this area. This area is hot. It's flying. We might need to settle depending on your situation if you need to move and things like that. So,
Oh yeah. Everyone's situation is different, but they just got to reach out and get paired with a great team and come up with a game plan.
absolutely. With that being said, we're gonna skip from that part into the middle, like we've been doing for the last few weeks. Part 3 of our home buying little seminar kind of thing. Last week, like I said, we had JP on, and he broke down a lot of the ins and outs of what he does. I know an inspector, everybody kind of thinks of like, Sherlock Holmes or Inspector Gadget, things like that. So we got a little more deep dive into what he does on a daily basis and what he kind of brings to the table as far as working with us. So after he comes through, what are the next processes for us, Justin, as far as, we'll say if we have a few things that pop up on this inspection?
Yeah, so after we get through the inspection, if there are any repairs or anything that you guys would like addressed by the seller and whatnot prior to closing, then at that point we go through it. So we go through the repairs that that you want addressed. Sometimes we may have to get a quote just to see how much it would cost with the contractor coming out and taking care of it and whatnot. And we can use that as a negotiation tool as well. So the main focus of it would be to really just come up with what you guys want to do, whether it's a price reduction to accommodate the repairs, have the seller do the repairs themselves, or get like a licensed professional contractor out there to take care of them, of course, or get money towards your closing costs and prepaids and etc. So that way you have more money in your pocket. So once closing happens and you get the house, you can apply that money towards the repairs that were noted and mentioned in the inspection report.
So an example would be, we'll say I'm the seller in this situation, and
Yes.
Justin is our buyer's agent. So let's say there is, we'll say a hot water tank needs to be replaced. Hot water tank's old, came on the inspection. There's like some discoloring going on. It's not lasting super long, and you have a young family. And you want to make sure that you can give your little kids baths, and that when they're finally done in the sleep, you have time for, throw some candles up, get that hot bubble bath going. You don't want to have to wait until the late hours of the evening before you can, have a little rest and relaxation. So this hot water tank we're looking at for this house, we'll say, is about $1,000. Our seller is selling because they have to sell their house. They need some money.
Right.
How do we handle something like that? Where the seller is willing to let whoever contractor kind of come in and do some of this work, but they don't have the funds up front, but they're willing to address it on the back end.
Yeah, so in that certain situation, and it could be even for like a furnace or AC unit too. One
Literally
thing I
any
always
work that
recommend,
can be contracted out.
yes, what
Yeah.
I recommend to my people is that if they can afford to get someone out there and do it, or they don't want to do closing costs or anything like that, ask for a home warranty. A home warranty goes a long ways. I've actually had it just happen to where an older furnace in the house, and we ask for a home warranty to kind of accommodate that extra in case it goes out. Because once it does go out, all you have to do, call, make a claim, pay a $50 to $100 deductible, and pick a contractor of your choice. They can come out, take care of it, and it's covered.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good way. So they're gonna come out and basically say, "Hey, this thing ain't kicking no more." Um, but I guess my question more or less was, it's gonna get changed. We've agreed to it. They're willing to basically pay for it, but not yet. You know what I mean? They're paying with
Okay.
their
Yeah.
proceeds. So typically, the way, or at least in the past, the way I've handled it is you just say, "Hey, if they're willing to take out their proceeds, it would put everybody's mind at ease if that thing was just, not there. We get a new one. We have um, ABC Heating and Air come out and they put in a new one for us. Shout out to ABC Heating and Air. I have no idea who that is. I just pulled it out of nowhere. So they come out, put in a new water tank, and they will give one of the agents, or if they have a super awesome secretary, which happens sometimes, they will get in touch with the title company and send them the bill. And then we'll say we're buying $100,000 house. Well, once me, the seller, is getting my $100,000 check from Justin and his clients, they'll chunk out the $1,000 for the repairs and send it on over to ABC Heating and Air. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
one.
there's definitely several different options too.
Oh yeah,
It's not the home warranty or closing costs. There's always a way to negotiate it so that way it is a win-win situation for the seller and of course the buyer.
oh yeah. That's kind of what we're going for here too. Is we want it to be a win-win as much as we can.
Right.
We don't want anyone feeling like they're getting the short end of any stick, um, and hopefully that their agent's feeling the same way. There's a lot of different creative ways as far as the home warranty is something that I typically advocate for just in case. It's just another level of insurance.
Hmm.
We were talking today. A lot of people um, have busy schedules and they have children and things like that, and they can't move, as quickly as they realize how quick the market's moving. So we'll say these sellers have their house on the market and they might hear us saying things and thinking that we're just trying to sell them. But realistically, their house is going to sell in 3 days. So
Yeah.
then they're a little shocked, like, oh man, they weren't joking. Good thing we had an agent that cared and they got us a 30-day grace period even after closing. The home warranty comes into play there. So that's something as a buyer that you're going to want to try and get anyways, just because during that period, we'll say that me as the seller, something happens. I don't know. I'm running this AC. It's got to be a hockey rink in my house. It's got to be cold. And that boy just pops. It's dead. And technically, Justin's clients are landlords.
Hmm.
They'd be on the hook for that whole thing. If they got the home warranty, like we typically recommend, same situation, $50, $100 deductible. They go out, check it. If it falls underneath their premium, everything's covered, no harm, no foul. They have a brand new AC once they get their keys after that 30 days. But if they're not protected, then it gets into a whole other mess.
Yeah. Then
Warranty
yeah,
is
that's
great.
that's a whole different ordeal right there.
Right. The home warranty is a fantastic tool, and having someone that can kind of think creatively as far as, listen, we're super close. We need this. They just don't want to offer this. And then we start, brainstorming. Um, that's one aspect of it. So with the inspection, like Justin's talked about in the past, we're not looking for nickel and dime things. It's mostly safety stuff. And there's so many little things that kind of go into it. So after the inspection gets wrapped up, I would say, unless you have anything to chime in as far as the inspection goes, I think we can maybe talk about appraisal.
Oh yeah, we can move into after the inspection because once we negotiate and get that all squared away, roll into the next.
Oh yeah. So appraisal is kind of next. If you look at it as far as like a weekly basis kind of thing, week one is kind of, hey, we got to accept it. Awesome. Let's get our earnest money deposit in there. Let's get our inspection scheduled. Let's sit down with our lender and get everything buttoned up with that. That's week one. Week two, that's usually when the inspector gets out there, unless you got a cool inspector like JP and he gets out 2 days after you call him. And then week three, hopefully, God willing, the appraiser gets out there.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
It's like fingers crossed the whole time.
Right. God willing, the appraiser gets out there. And what the appraiser is going to do is basically validate, the listing or the agreed upon amount between the buyer and the seller. So we'll say that this house is that I'm selling my house for $100,000. Justin's client has agreed to buy it for $100,000. The bank is basically going to send this appraiser out, take a look at the market, and see if that sale fits what's going on in the market as far as the price of the home compared to other homes in the area that are similar. Basically, what they're doing is they're not lending you $300,000 for a $100,000 house. They're making sure that their investment is there, that the collateral of the home is going to go as far as the loan that they're offering you to pay for this place, which is usually not bad, but
usually
the reason we're talking about it is because sometimes it gets sticky and weird when it appraises low. Sometimes you get these appraisers that want to be FHA superheroes and they nickel and dime you for everything under the sun. I don't mind talking half bad about them because I did reach out to two and they both shot us down. We tried to get them on here to interview them and ask them what their process is. I'm not going to drag them through the dirt or anything, but they're our enemies until further notice.
Oh, man.
So FHA appraiser comes out, nickel and dimes us on everything. How do you handle it?
Yeah, so FHA appraiser comes out. Most of the time, they're going to look at something such as anything with like chip paint, anything that doesn't look structurally sound or that is a safety hazard. So including like handrails and those type of things as well. So they're going to go out there. For one, they're going to, of course, look at the house and see how it compares to other houses in the market that are similar and that have also sold. Another thing that they're doing is kind of like their inspection almost, to where they're going through, taking pictures, and of course, they're making notes of things such as chip paint or if there's handrails missing and so on and so forth. And what's interesting too, we've actually talked about this a little bit earlier, even with conventional loans now, you're starting to see some of the similar repairs get brought up too. But once the appraiser goes out there and they get all that, they'll put it in the report, get it over to the lender, and then they have to go through their underwriters to be approved and whatnot. And once that's when it's released. And of course, that's when we discuss about it.
Who's the underwriter?
Who is the underwriter?
Yeah, who the fuck knows? Right?
Yeah. Literally, there's someone behind a desk that they look at all the documents, they see if it matches up with the loan, make sure qualifications are good and everything, and then they just approve it.
Might as well be right?
Yeah, literally.
So the reason it is that way, though, which again it makes sense, is that the appraiser and the underwriter need to have an unbiased opinion on the house. They're looking at only stats and numbers. They're not looking at, when we sit down with you as a seller, we're taking into account your needs. We're there to service you. If you're like, hey, I know that we agreed on, if I'm talking to my agent in this hypothetical situation, I'm saying, hey, I know that 94.9 is where you're at. I really kind of need to get $100,000 out of this place. We tell you the pros and cons of doing something like that. Obviously, we'll discuss that with you, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to educate you so you can make the best decision you can. However, these appraisers and underwriters, they have, those blast shields up. They're not looking one way or another. They're just trying to do what's in the best interest for the company that they work for, which is fine. That's their job. And that's what they're going to do. And that's where it gets weird for us because, there's two parties involved, however many people, and, these people just come in and they don't even consider X, Y, and Z. Sometimes they have super busy schedules too. And sometimes things get missed. Sometimes things come in low and it's like, hey, I ran the numbers when I listed it and it looks fantastic. And now you're telling me that I was wrong. So and
Yeah.
then it just gets into more negotiation area, because now me as the seller, I'm sitting here thinking I'm getting 100 grand. We signed this contract, 3 weeks ago,
Then boom.
and then boom, Justin's appraiser comes out and tells us, "Sorry, we can only do 95." As the seller, like I'm like, "Hey, where's my 5 grand at?" But there's certain things with it, right? I mean, like an FHA appraisal is going to stick with the
Yeah.
house for 6 months, so that kind of just is
Mhm.
what it is. There's other ways to kind of get trying to make meet in the middle with things like that, where um, I've seen a lot of different creative things from certain lenders where they, twist the numbers up and they get it so that, man, shout out to my guy Vince Lyons over at Benchmark Mortgage. This dude, we had that same similar situation, and he got it set up so that we could meet in the middle, but also the buyer wasn't paying any more down than they would have,
Mm.
which is crazy to me to think about. Like he just found $2,500.
That's so wild.
Right. So that's what we're saying though. If you get the right team behind you, I mean, we can make magic happen.
Oh yeah.
So let's say an FHA appraisal comes back and these like little things kind of come up. How do you typically handle that when you're talking to your sellers or your buyers?
Yeah, so I mean, when I talk to my sellers, especially, well, we'll just stick with like the repair portion, but for a second, but when I talk to my sellers, I'm like, hey, of course these repairs are tedious, little things, but in order for this to go through, we have to get it done. And most of the time, I'm over there with them. If it's chip paint, I'm sanding down. I got the paintbrush going, the whole nine. Like
Yeah.
I'm hands on. But if it's a buyer, I kind of mention like the same thing. Like of course tedious things that you guys plan on changing or doing anyways, but at this point in time we have to get it done. Now if the
Let
price
me
comes in under, wait,
let
go
me
ahead.
let me stop you real quick before we get to the pricing and all that. So I
Yeah.
think that this is kind of where the um, misconception gets, where the appraisal and the inspection are two different things. So these things will pop up on the inspection typically,
Yeah.
and then we'll take them to our buyers and say, "Hey, here's this. We're looking for bad things that are going to make it tough for us to live in this home." But then a week later, we have this appraiser coming out saying, "Hey, we need to have an outlet installed in the bathroom. We need to have these things sanded down, just little minute things." And once we've already sent that message to the seller, and sometimes the sellers don't know any better either. They haven't sold their home or bought their home in years. And
Right.
and they don't realize, like, hey, I thought we were good on this. I thought that we came to an agreement. I thought that we were moving forward if we took care of, in our case, our hypothetical case, the hot water tank. What is stopping that? Explain that to people, that it's not necessarily the buyer that needs to have these things done, but the bank.
Yeah, like most of the time the buyers are cool with it. They're like, all right, it's no big deal, we'll take care of it. But when it comes to the bank, it's essentially like, you're not getting a loan unless these are taken care of or addressed. So it's not whether it's the buyer's choice or whatnot. It's literally just the bank's decision saying, hey, can't get this loan unless you do these. So, when the sellers look at that as like, what you could have asked for it in the inspection, so on and so forth. But with it being two separate things, it's really up to the bank.
Yeah. So typically, what the difference between a conventional loan and an FHA loan would be: if you could get financing for a conventional loan, you could buy whatever house you want. For
Mm-hmm.
FHA, and that's kind of what I tell my buyers too. I know a lot of buyers and sellers are kind of thrown off by the whole like FHA title with a loan, but you're getting a standard of home that has to live up to a certain level. And that's not even like just by your eye. They're going to have an appraiser come out, and that's part of the appraiser
Mm-hmm.
process too, is they're going to make sure this house is up to the necessary level that is safe for you guys, and then make sure that it's comfortable to be loaned on. So, but we're starting to see that with conventional loans too. It's just getting a little more stingy out there. So I know that it's, oh man, stay away from FHA, but no, it's people are going to feel a little silly when they passed up, $15,000 on more on an FHA offer,
And the same repairs pop up.
and the same repairs pop up on a conventional loan. So, I mean, just have these conversations and stay educated and talk to us or your other agent, and just kind of, ask questions. This is a crazy process. There's a lot that goes into it, but like we've said, not to kind of beat a dead horse to death, but if you got the right team that kind of know what they're doing, then it's not as scary as it can be. So
Right.
FHA repairs get done. Our appraiser comes back out. He takes his pictures, or she takes her pictures. Whoever it is with their camera, they're getting pictures taken. Well,
Someone's doing it.
someone's doing it. We get past that. We get over the bridge with that. We'll say that the price comes in under, like you were kind of alluding to before I cut you off. Go ahead and get into that.
Yeah. So, if the price does come in under, of course, a couple things can happen. Seller can come down on the price and, everyone's happy, win-win situation. Or, going into like an appraisal gap or something like that. That gap, the difference in the price. Sometimes the sellers may ask for that whole gap or even just a portion of it. It just really depends. But yeah, there's a couple different ways to go about that. And like I said, like you mentioned, as long as you have a creative team or a creative agent, with you, there's ways around it and ways to come to an agreement that's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of comes into that is like if you don't, that appraisal comes back and you might have an agent that's like, well, the appraisal came back bad. They're either going to have to sell or we're going to have to walk. And you're like, what? We've had our stuff boxed at our old home for a week and a half.
Right.
We thought we were getting the keys in 5 days. What do you mean? So, yeah, that's just the kind of thing. You want to don't settle as soon as you meet, whoever it is. But, yeah, so we get past that hump. Oh, man, train of thought has just died. So to wrap this whole thing up, once we come to an agreement, we settle on a price, whether it's appraised right at our exact dollar amount, which does happen, or low or high, and we negotiate terms like that. We get all of our repairs done if there's any. We get all of our appraisers' repairs done if any, and we're happy. We have everything signed. The next step, and we'll have a guest on next week to kind of talk about some of the ins and outs of that whole stressful process. Again, it's not if you have the right people on your side of the table. Kind of talking about the closing process and things like that. It's the closing day is the reason I got into this business. It's so much fun. I love.
Dude, it's such a good feeling. Just like getting someone into a house, like. Yes. There's nothing more rewarding than that, especially in this business. It just makes you feel good because everyone's happy most of the time. Sometimes there's instances where it's like, tensions are high, but most of the time it's a good feeling.
Oh yeah, I love it. I've heard some agents say that they don't go to their closings, and that is just beyond me. It's like, why are you doing this?
Right, because especially how we run our businesses, it's more relationship based rather than worrying about the next paycheck. It's more so about who else can I help. So yeah, how people just don't go to closing is that's beyond me. I love it.
It gives me an excuse to go shopping. My last closing I had, I was out and about. I'm like, man, I kind of want, maybe I'll just do a gift card. I don't really know what they need. And I was like, that's super lame. Who gets gift cards? I mean, if you get a gift card, and you're I just know. I just feel like it's a lame gift, but that's neither here nor there.
I gave out gift cards before.
Yeah, I mean, I have too. To be fair, I have too. But especially if you don't really know what they want, they just kind of keep like if they keep talking about like, oh, I'm gonna change this, I'm gonna change that, gonna change this, gonna change that. I'll get them a gift card like Home Depot or something. Like, dude, I was gonna go out and buy a hammer and nails, so you can go do that yourself. But I found myself at Kirkland's and I got this basket and I put a whole bunch of kitchen stuff in there just so that once they get there to their new home, they'll have something to make it feel a little more homey.
Oh yeah.
Things like that. And it's just cool, man. It's so much fun. We'll have someone on here that conducts closings on a usual basis next week with us. And we'll talk kind of about, what they need to make things go smoothly from either us, our clients, or the lenders, and just kind of get into that whole process because that's another kind of foggy area that's weird that we can actually shed some light on. It's not like, the Wizard of Oz back there in the underwriting. So we can actually help people learn about this one. So you got any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. I just know going back to it, said it several times. Just have a good team. Have a
Yep,
good team behind your back. Get you to closing. Get you through the appraisal and any repairs, through the inspection, the whole 9 yards. It's a breeze when you have the right people.
absolutely. Absolutely. Cool, man. Well, I'm Kyle. He's Justin, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.
Nice. Thanks.
Here. Let's do it.
Man.
Look at that.
Oh, that's the most refreshing. Oh, that first drink.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I buy Sprites and yeah, Sprite. Like after like a long day or just when you're ready, hop on the sticks. You just, whew, it's crisp.
Dude, there might not be a better taste. That first it's like just like a hot day, and you're not even doing
Oh yeah.
sweating, and you go to the corner store, and it's got like that frigid cooler. You
Oh
got
yeah, like
out of there, dude.
10 degrees.
That first drink is worth the price of admission, dude. It hits.
Oh dude, yeah, you get it, you get in your car and you're just right there, right there. But it's just so satisfying. It's just so good. Man.
I love it. Okay.
All right.